All right. So, welcome to the third lesson in trauma psychology, the psychology of trauma, psychology 428 of Malta University. Today we will be talking about the formation of trauma, how trauma is formed, but a little review of what we have talked about in the last two sessions, right? In the first lesson, we talked about the tree and brain theory, set forth by Dr. Paul MacLean. The tree and brain theory says that we have three levels of the brain in humans. The first level is the basic level, the layer that we share with all living animals. It's called the reptilian brain, that is necessary so that we can stay alive, that is necessary to keep our hearts beating, to keep our cardiovascular circuits running, to keep our growth hormones running, to keep our digestive system running. So to keep all the functioning systems of the body, we have the reptilian brain. Reptilian brain also keeps us alive by making our body move in the face of a threat. So if there's a threat, the reptilian brain decides whether we fight or whether we flee or whether we freeze. On top of this, there's a second layer of the brain that animals evolved and inherited over hundreds and millions of years, that is called the mammalian brain. Now, the mammalian brain is the part of the brain that regulates emotions, right? Emotions is a function that we do need in order to survive in the packs. If you think about reptilians, if you think about crocodiles or frogs or snakes, they kind of stand around same places because of temperature and because of food sources, but they do not relate to each other. You don't see snakes developing friendship. You don't see crocodiles helping each other in any way, shape, or form. So they don't have any emotions that help them live in a team. Whereas if you look at the upper level of animals, the mammalians, the dogs, the wolves, the hyenas, the giraffes, they have relationships, right? They have certain loyalty to the pack. They get sad if their babies get killed. They get angry if they're pushed. They feel shame. You remember from your dogs and from your cats. They have emotions, and thanks to those emotions, the group can survive, and then the mammalians can take care of them babies with the help of the group, right? So this is the mammalian brain that is responsible of emotions. And the top layer is the neocortex, is the thinking brain, is the part of the brain that provides the empathy, humor, musical intelligence, logic, reasoning, philosophy, thinking about the future, planning, learning from our mistakes. So this is the executive level functioning, high level, complex, sophisticated level functioning. That is the third level of the brain. That is the neocortex. So we have all three layers, the humans. Reptilians only have one. Mammalians have the two, and we have all three. And then we talked about last week in the next lesson, in lesson 2, the nervous system, the system that encompasses the brain, the spine, the body, that controls all kind of subsystems, the hormonal system, the digestive systems, the limbs, the skin, the cardiovascular systems, the veins. Everything is controlled by the nervous system. And nervous system is getting information from outside and from inside. It's getting information from outside with the senses, with the eyes, with the ears, with the nose, with the skin. And assesses all that information to make sure that if we are safe, we are well, but if we're not safe, we go to safety. That's the job of the nervous system, to keep us safe. It gets all the information from the outside and also from the inside. If we get sick, the nervous system immediately catches whatever bacteria or viruses threaten us, and that gets the body to fight against it. So that's the idea of the nervous system. So now I want you to think, by the way, are you seeing the second slide that says safe versus under threat? Please write yes if you do see that. Great. All right, guys, thanks. So every moment of our lives, we have sense organs like my eyes, like my ears, like my nose, like my skin. They gather information from the outside world, and they take this information, they take this data, and they evaluate it to make sure that we are safe, right? And this idea, whether we are safe or not, has to be evaluated at every single second. For example, at 3 o'clock, my nervous system decides that I'm safe. It just doesn't stop. It does it again right the next second, right the next second, right the next second. So it doesn't rest. It's constantly evaluating it. And it's a rule that all living organisms have to abide by. There are no animals or there are no humans that say, hey, I want to turn this off. It's taking too much energy. I'm not going to evaluate whether I'm safe or not. This is not a luxury that we have. And I'd like you to think of this on a scale, on a scala, like a ruler, right? On one end of the ruler, you have 0, which is you have safe. And on the other end of the ruler, you have threatened, you have 10. So our nervous systems are constantly fluctuating between different numbers depending on where we are. So there's no definite 3. I can be feeling safe at a level of 3, and in 2 minutes, I can be feeling safe at a level of 5. It changes constantly all the time, right? So when you look at people, I'd like you to think of them on the scale from now on. How safe does this person feel? It may be a real threat. It may be a fictional threat, a perceived threat, but how safe does this person's nervous system feel at this moment, right? So you might be feeling safe, you know, at a level of 2, and then all of a sudden some information comes in that you're not even aware of, and all of a sudden your nervous system gets amped up. For example, hopefully one day these crazy days will be over, and then we will stop this online stuff and we'll go back to real classes, and I will be teaching in the classroom. Let's say I'm teaching, I'm talking about nervous systems and whatnot, and all of a sudden I see that 5 students are yawning at the same time. You know, yawning? That piece of information comes in through my eyes, and before I realize what's happening, my nervous system starts to get activated, and I feel danger. I feel under threat. Why? There's nothing that these 5 students will do to me to threaten my life, but if they do not like what I'm teaching, if they don't like my tempo and they start to get bored, they will go outside the class and they present a danger to me, because they might go and talk about Teacher Mehmet was boring, Teacher Mehmet was not good. They can say bad things about the way I teach the class, and that might ruin my reputation, right? That might ruin my credibility within the academic community. So just by seeing a bunch of students yawn at the same time, my nervous system catches threat and starts to get into a fight or flight or freeze mode, right? Now, if I'm not teaching and if I see the same 5 people yawning on the street, my nervous system will not do anything. But if I see this happening in the class while I'm teaching, my nervous system will start to evaluate this information depending on the situation, right? Just like you're walking on the street and you hear a dog barking. Before you know whether this dog is actually dangerous, whether this dog is actually big enough to hurt you, whether this dog has a leash that's controlled by the owner, your nervous system jumps and gets tight, gets tense before you evaluate any kind of information, right? So the nervous system first goes into defensive mode and then relaxes. This is how it works. Now, the human body, when it's not feeling safe, it constantly tries to go towards safety. This is a very important statement, and I'm going to repeat this. The human body, when it's not feeling safe, it does everything possible to go towards safety, either psychologically or physiologically. And this effort is constantly there, whether you understand it or not. Do you see how important this is for psychologists to realize this? Let's say that I have someone in front of me who's talking about the shirt that they bought a week ago. There's a certain tempo this guy speaks with. There's a certain body language they have. And then when I asked them about their relationship with their wives, their speech tempo changes. The way they swallow changes. The way they move their hands change, right? It's very important for me to see the story of the body underneath the actual story that they're talking about. Sensations. So if an organism is not safe, is constantly trying to go to safety, please keep this idea in mind. This is a very, very important concept. Now, the language of the impulses is sensations. Again, when the lower parts of my brain send me signals, the language of these signals are sensations. What are sensations? What are sensations? Sensations are things that I feel in my body. This is how the system works. Please remember the priority. When there's danger or there's some kind of a threat, the lower parts of the brain get up, they control the system, and they start to send me signals to let me know what is going on underneath, right? So whatever your ego is, whatever your identity is, it's that top part of the brain. You know, I'm Mehmet, I'm Turkish, I'm a psychologist, I'm a friend, I'm a son, whatever that is. This is all sitting in the neocortex. Underneath, I'm just an animal trying to survive. So whenever there are signals coming from the lower parts of the brain, the top part of the brain senses them and interprets them, makes a meaning out of them right away. Yeah? So this is kind of the way the brain operates. You've heard of the unconscious and the conscious. Largely, unconsciousness is the signals that are being sent from the lower parts of the brain. Now, give me 1 second. So this operation has a priority over everything else. Guys, can you still see the slides? Is there a problem with the connection? Hello, can you hear me? I think there was a disconnection. Guys, can you hear me? Okay, great, great. And okay, thank you. So now, when I'm thinking logically and intelligently from the upstairs brain, let's say the downstairs brain fires. It starts to give me some signals. Think of these expressions. I flipped. I froze. I wanted to do one thing, but I couldn't help myself. I did something else. I saw red. I felt like hot water was pouring over my head. I had like a brain freeze. Right? I'm sure all of you have experienced these kinds of experiences before. What this is talking about is talking about that all of a sudden, as you were operating from the top brain, the lower parts of the brain came and took over your top brain. Right? Now, are you with me so far? Is this making sense? Is this clear? Okay, great. Do you have any questions so far? Yeah. So, are you still seeing the slides? Okay, I'm really sorry. I have a problem with the slide. I want to put on the next one, but there might be a problem. The next slide, yeah, we are, but I'm trying to go to the fourth one. Anyways, I might have to go without the slide this time. Yeah. So the next topic that I want to talk about is, anyways, you will have the slides in your folders. You actually have them if you want to, if you want to turn them on and then look at them. Oh, there you go. We're back. So we're on slide number 4. Can you see it? It says farkındalık. Okay, sorry, I left it in Turkish. So it's awareness. Now, what is being aware? Being aware of what? Awareness of what? What are we trying to be aware of? What is this mindfulness thing that is getting so popular lately? This is what mindfulness is, right? Being aware of your body, of what is happening inside your body. It's simply that. If a big percentage of my awareness is always on the outside, I don't know what is happening in my body, right? If I'm constantly fixated on what's going on the outside and I have no awareness of what's going on the inside, that means that I'm not catching the biochemical reactions that are happening inside my body, because there's a certain language that my body speaks to me, and that's the body sensations. To be able to perceive them, tolerate them, process them, I do need some awareness of my body, right? This is the concept of one person knowing themselves, right? This is the entry to wisdom. Now, what is assumption? Assuming is when my body sends me some signals and I write a story on top of these signals, right? Assuming, guessing, thinking as something is something else, right? Especially under stress, when we are stressed, our brain make meanings of things very fast. And then it treats these meanings as if they're real. You probably see this very often in your personal relationships. There are two people that look at the same thing
but their brains make different formations, different assumptions. One person says, my assumptions is the right one. The other one says, no, my assumptions is the right one, right? You're cheating on me and I know it, right? You don't love me and I know it, right? You're jealous of me and I know it. So all of these are assumptions. Now, why do we have these assumptions? Why do we have these jealousies? Because my brain is trying to protect me from hurting. My brain is trying to predict whether I'm in danger or not. And if you don't love me, if you don't like me, there's a danger of me being pushed out of the relationship system, of me being alone. And that is a big threat to the system. So my brain freaks out and goes from the safe mode to the unsafe mode, right? The brain has a responsibility of computing whether I'm safe or I'm not very fast. So if things have hurt me before, then my brain has a record of those things and it looks at today and it evaluates what's happening under the light of what's happened in the previously. Right? Some people act emotionally. What does that mean? Some people act emotionally because they don't know how to use their neocortexes to test whether their emotions are true or not. Think of people in your lives like this that act very emotionally. Think of yourself. Maybe there are times that you act intelligently, thinking, but there must be many times you're acting out of emotions, very stupidly, right? This is happening when your neocortex is not able to assess whether these emotions are valid or not. The emotions are very strong, and the top part of your brain is being overpowered by the lower part of the brain, right? So, under the light of this information, what is trauma? Trauma is when something happens that is too fast, too sudden, and too much. And my neocortex cannot keep me safe. So the lower parts of my brain say, enough, I'm taking control. So when something is too fast, like a car accident, right? When something is too much, like the pain that I feel in a relationship, right? All these instances where my neocortex doesn't have a way of protecting me and my lower parts of the brain come and take over. So let's say I'm driving a car on a specific street on Baghdad Street, and right by Suadiye, I'm driving on a green light, and a guy on the other side of the street who's driving on a red light comes and hits me. I wasn't able to see the car coming towards me, so I get hurt. So my brain immediately organizes itself so that Baghdad Street, Suadiye, being in the car, other cars coming from the left-hand side, they all get classified as threatening, as dangerous pieces of information. So even 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 5 years after the accident, as I'm driving on Baghdad Street, on the same street, my body immediately starts to get tense. Even if I'm not in danger at the moment, because of what happened in the past, my body goes under a threatening response. It goes into fight or flight mode. This is what trauma is. Presently, there's nothing that threatens me. My body gets activated because of what happened in the past, right? For example, in my very first relationship, I'm in love and I have a great relationship, but after 6 months, I realize that my girlfriend has been cheating on me. I get a horrible heartbreak and I'm shocked and I'm having panic attacks and anxiety and I can't make it. The feeling is too much and I'm hurt. I leave this relationship. There's a certain time that passes. I grieve, I heal the wounds, and then I go into a second relationship, maybe after 2 years, and I fall in love again. And everything goes great, and things are working fantastically. And after about a year, I realize that my girlfriend is cheating on me again. Immense pain, immense pain. My heart is broken. I'm sad. I'm crying. I'm upset. It's just too much pain. It's overwhelming my system. Anyways, that relationship is over again, and I grieve, I heal, and after 1 year, I go into another relationship. This time, I am traumatized. It's very difficult for me to trust this person. Even if this new person doesn't do anything that would deserve my mistrust, I find it very difficult to trust. Every time there's a message on the phone, my nervous system gets amped up. Every time this person speaks to someone I don't know, I start to feel jealousy, insecurity inside my system, right? Why is this happening? Because my brain, under the light of its own old experiences, is trying to protect me from a possible hurt. Because I was hurt in previous relationships, my brain is trying to form a circle of safety around me. And therefore, I feel insecure and jealousy in any relationship, right? For some people, trauma is limited to specific incidents, specific types of people, specific events, right? Some people get into a car and they're fine until they see a bus coming from the left side because they've been hit by a bus coming from the left side prior. So they're okay being in the car until they see a bus, and then their traumas wake up. For some people, as soon as they get into a car, their traumas wake up and they feel unsafe. Their bodies start to scream, right? So a lot of variables go into what makes you feel unsafe, but this is how it works. Because of our prior experiences, the lower structures of the brain come online and take action with the priority of surviving, of staying safe, right? And if these signals are at a level where we can tolerate, for example, on a scale of 0 to 10, if these signals are kind of low, they're not screaming, we can tolerate them and we can still act intelligently with our neocortex. But if these signals are high and they're screaming, they're above our levels of tolerance, then we start acting emotionally. And that is what trauma is. Does this make sense, my friends? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Is this making sense, this piece of trauma? Jaylan says, how long does trauma last on average? There is no mathematical formula that could tell you an average time. So I cannot tell you one trauma lasts 2 years or average trauma lasts 5 years. It depends on many things. For example, let's take this example of a trauma of a car accident. Many questions need to be asked. One, how old were you when this accident happened? If you were much younger at an age where you didn't know how to protect yourself and you got hurt inside a car, then it's more likely that you develop a general sense of fear towards cars and that this lasts longer. But if you get into the same type of accident when you're 45 years old, it's a little less likely because your neocortex is much more developed and it can make more logical decisions. It depends on how hurt you were in the accident, right? If you were hurt just a little bit, then the trauma can last lot shorter. But if you were really badly hurt, if people you loved were hurt, then this can be a much bigger trauma. How much you were able to heal after the trauma also is a factor in how long these traumas last. Your support system while healing from the trauma is also a factor whether this trauma can last or not. Some people get a lot of support from their surroundings, from their friends and from their families. They come to therapists, they're able to talk about their traumas, about their relationship traumas, about their physical traumas, about their sexual traumas. They feel like they're being understood, they're being supported, they're being held, and they're able to process these traumas. Then they can heal them. But if no work has been done, and if that person is not supported through the traumas, there's a higher chance that these traumas last longer. Does that answer your question a little bit? Great. So let's look at this picture. What is this picture? Do you know what this is? It's a pretty famous metaphor in the field of psychology, the iceberg. The iceberg says that you can see the top part, yeah, the Freud stuff, the ego, the superego, the id, and all that craziness. Now, for our purposes, we're going to think of this as the consciousness and the unconsciousness. So consciousness is my neocortex, vastly, right? It's how I think about things, how I'm able to conduct my behavior. And the unconsciousness is the result of all these experiences that I have experienced up until now. And my system, my organism, my body trying to keep me safe, it has to take into consideration all of my past experiences. So all of my fears, am I scared of relationships? Am I scared of authority figures? Am I scared of failing? Am I scared of people? This is all from the unconsciousness, from my past experiences. My motivations, am I ambitious about succeeding? Am I driven? Do I have willpower? All of that comes from the unconsciousness, from the past experiences, right? So, as young psychologists, this is how I'd like you to start thinking about from now on. I see a behavior in one person, and before I jump into judgments and conclusions and assumptions, how much do I know about their unconsciousness, about their past? Why are they so scared of certain things? Why do they get upset at certain things? Why do they act so emotional at certain things? Before you make judgments about people's characters and people's personalities, you have to take this very important equation into consideration, right? Always remember that you have icebergs in front of you. There's a part that you see, and there's a huge part that you don't see. Which brings us to the understanding of trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is when something is too fast, too much, too sudden, and the lower parts of the brain comes up, turns on, and comes online. And they take control of the operations. And what the lower parts of the brain want to do is to save you from danger completely so that you can survive. So you survive, but then what happens later? Certain data gets collected by the external senses during this dangerous incident, when things were too much, too sudden, too fast, certain data gets collected by the external senses. These data get labeled as dangerous by our nervous system. From this point on, we have what we call the traumatic experiences. Your nervous system will signal alarm when you encounter similar situations, similar people, similar events. And the energy adjustment, what happens? The energy will leave the neocortex and moves towards the lower parts of the brain. There are actually studies that you can watch online of fMRIs, the functional magnetic resonant imaging. They videotape people's brain activity while they get nervous. You can see that. Guys, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I think I got disconnected for a moment. Oh, great. Okay. So there are studies, they take videos of people's brain activities with this technology called fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imagery. When people are anxious, when people are nervous, when people are scared or upset, the blood leaves the neocortex and starts to go down towards the lower parts of the brain, towards the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain. You can see this, it's fascinating. The blood flow in the brain changes when we are threatened, right? So that's when the balance between thoughts, emotions, and instincts start to change. And we start to react without thinking, with automatic reactions. Now, again, let's think of people who act emotionally. You can all think of one person at least that is very emotional under certain circumstances. And think of yourself at a time where you have acted emotionally in an automatic way, right? So calculated responses, thinking before acting, long-term planning, that is the function of the neocortex, right? We think before we speak, we think before we act. We can think of the consequences of our actions in a long-term plan. This is when we are safe, when we are in a relationship, and when we're not threatened. Now think of reactions out of emotions, automatic reactions, without thinking, to just survive the moment. When we are threatened, our anger comes up, our fear comes up, right? So these are reactions without thinking to survive the moment. These are automatic reactions. I'm sure most of you are hearing or studying the CBT, the cognitive behavioral theory. In cognitive approach, there's this thing called automatic thinking, automatic thoughts. The therapist will try to evaluate whether the patient or the client has automatic thoughts. They go directly into some kind of conclusions. So this is what automatic thinking is. Whenever you are threatened, you don't make intelligent, sophisticated, complex calculations. You act on the heat of the moment. So that's what automatic thinking is. So people who have been traumatized, people who have had traumatizing situations, who have been around difficult people, who have been involved in difficult challenging situations, they are more prone to acting automatically in the face of things. It's more difficult for them to stay calm, present, and in their thinking brain. So this is all I have for you guys. Was this clear? Did this make any sense? Do you have a little bit better understanding of trauma now? What's going on? Asude seems to understand it. Thank you, Asude. Elif also. Great. Any, Ceylan, Ece, thank you. So any questions, Ecem? Any questions that you'd like to ask, or anything that you'd like to share from your life in the under the light of these teachings? No, we're good. Okay. Nawar has a question. It says, Hocam, are traumas the beginning or origin of any anxiety or psychological problem? For example, social anxiety from the trauma that a person has experienced in a contemporary society or something. It's a bit of a complicated question. I'm not sure if I'm understanding it, Nawar. Do you want to turn on your microphone and speak out loud? And from the question, maybe it'll be easier. All right. Yeah, please.
Hi, John. If you don't mind, my clamination at the moment.
Like who at the moment?
I'm saying like my clamination at the moment is like when a person has a social anxiety, okay? For example, social anxiety or a panic attack or something. Like I'm asking, like, is the beginning or the origin of this in a person is that trauma that have formed from a society that he been like society is a very big word, like I would say like a community or a surrounding that he was feeling uncomfortable in, so there where the trauma is formed, and then we had that person who had social anxiety. So I'm claiming here, like, is it like the origin of any psychological problem a trauma?
Yes, that's a very good question. And yes, we can conclude that. Yes, let's say that I grew up in a society, in a community that has not made me feel secure about myself, right? Or let's take the opposite. Let's say I grew up in a family that gave me lots of love, lots of support, and I feel really good about myself. And whenever I go into any social situation, I take this feeling of good about myself, and I have the sense that I will belong, that I will have a good time, that I am safe, right? There's no reason for me to feel any social anxiety. But there are a lot of people that grow up in families who didn't know how to make the kids feel safe. In some families, the adults had many problems. In some families, there were factors of unsafety around. There were money problems, there were relationship problems, whatever. So these families didn't succeed in making these children feel good and safe about themselves. So when these children grow up and they go into certain situations, they always have this feeling of, oh, am I good enough to be accepted by these people? Am I good enough to be approved by these people? Am I good looking enough? Am I funny enough? Am I intelligent enough? Am I cool enough? Whatever it is. So that is a very basic fear, the fear of being left alone, being pushed out of the society. That is a trauma. So when you start having these feelings, the lower parts of the brain get up and they dominate the neocortex, and they don't allow you to think and be yourself. You act out of a sense of panic. So that's what the social anxiety is. People, they get into situations and they have not been supported enough to learn how to feel secure about themselves. So there's a sense of security that fuels their existence in social relationships. So that's where the social anxiety comes from.
Okay, Hujam, I thank you a lot. You make it very clear. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome, Noor. All right, if there are no other questions, then we can close the shop today. Anything else? All good? All right, so we'll see you all next week then. No, quiz will not be next week, Elif. We will have the 4th class. The quiz will be the week after that. All right, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.